For 36 years, my family called me a liar. And the only two people who might have known the truth were both already under the ground in the little Camposanto where I finally went to say my piece. I was 16 years old the day I told the truth, and my tia Connie made certain it was the last day anyone in that family ever believed a word out of my mouth. I'm going to tell you what my cousin Yolanda said to me, standing between my mother's grave and my grandmother's, 36 years after they buried both my name and my mother in the same hard season. But first, you have to understand what it costs a child to be made the liar, precisely because she told the truth. My name is Rosa. I am 54 years old, and I make pots out of the same red dirt my people have lived on for the better part of 200 years, up in the high country of northern New Mexico, where the piñon smoke hangs low in the cold and the Sangre de Cristo mountains go the color of a wound at sundown. I have worked clay my whole adult life, and clay teaches you a thing that took me far too long to apply to my own family. The pot that comes out of the mold looking the most flawless is very often the one with a hidden crack down inside it, a flaw you cannot see, and that pot will shatter the instant it meets the heat of the kiln. Meanwhile, the plain, honest pot, the one nobody looks at twice, rings true as a bell when you tap it, and it comes through the fire whole. For 36 years, my family kept the pretty pot on the shelf and called the true one cracked. I am going to tell you how the fire finally told them which was which. If you have ever been the one nobody believed, the one whose truth was so inconvenient that it was easier for everyone to decide you were lying, then I think you already know the particular loneliness I am about to lay out. Tell me in the comments where you are listening from and whether you have ever carried a true thing that your own family decided not to hear. I read every one. There is a strange kind of mercy in a room full of people who were each called a liar alone. Let me tell you who my mother was, because she is the reason for everything that follows. Estella was a potter too, the one who first pressed my hands into the clay when I was so small I could barely see over the wheel. And she had a saying she used like a prayer. "Tell it straight, mija." She said it when I broke something and was tempted to hide it. She said it when the world made lying the easy road. Tell it straight and let the chips fall. She believed, the way only an honest person can really afford to believe, that the truth is a kind of bedrock you can always stand on, even when everything else gives way beneath you. She did not live long enough to find out what it would cost her daughter to believe her. I have wondered, in my hardest years, whether she did me a cruelty raising me that way, making me a girl who could not keep her mouth shut over a wrong, inside a family that ran on keeping mouths shut. But I do not believe that anymore. She did not hand me a weakness. She handed me the one thing that survived everything. They took my name and my family and 36 years, but they could not take the thing my mother built into my two hands, which was the plain inability to look at a crooked thing and call it straight. Let me tell you about the year everything broke, because it was the same year everything else broke too. And that is not an accident. My mother, Estella, died of a cancer the winter I was 15, fast and cruel. And my father had passed when I was small, so when she was gone, I was an orphan in the truest sense of the word, 16 and alone. And I went to live with my mother's sister, my tia Connie, in the big adobe house that had been my grandmother's. My grandmother, my abuela, was still alive then, but she was old and failing, her mind coming and going like weather. And Connie had taken over the running of everything, the house, the money, the care of our abuela. To the whole town, Connie was a saint, the good daughter who took in her dead sister's grieving child and nursed her own failing mother under the same roof. Everyone said it. Pobre Connie, carrying so much. I want to be fair to Connie, even now, because the easy version of this is a wicked aunt, and the true version is sadder and more useful. Connie was not born cruel. Connie was a frightened, proud, cornered woman. Her own marriage was failing quietly. There was never enough money. and she had spent her whole life standing in the shadow of my mother, who had been the bright one, the loved one, the one everyone's eyes followed. And now my mother was dead and had left behind a daughter with my mother's same face and my mother's same stubborn way of looking straight at a thing nobody wanted looked at. I think when Connie looked at me, she saw everything she had resented her whole life, sitting at her table, eating her food, needing her. None of which excuses one single thing she did. But it is worth understanding because people do not become this way out of nothing. They become this way out of old wounds they decided to pass along instead of carry. Here is what happened, and I have told it so few times in my life that my voice still does not quite know the shape of it. That spring, helping in my abuela's room the way I did, I began to notice things. Money missing from the box my abuela kept, then her good jewelry, the things she had told me since I was small would matter someday, gone, one piece at a time. Then papers, the kind of papers a 16-year-old does not fully understand, but understands enough. Papers about the land and the house, with my abuela's shaking signature on them in fresh ink, on days I knew for a fact her mind had not been clear. I was 16. I was grieving my mother, and I was watching my tia Connie quietly empty out a dying woman who could no longer keep track of her own name. I did the thing my mother would have done, the thing she had raised me to do before she ran out of time to raise me at all. I told the truth. I did not do it cleverly, because I was a child. I went to my abuela on one of her clear afternoons, and I told her what I had seen. And I went to another relative, an older cousin of my mother's, and I said it out loud. I thought, in my child's heart, that the truth would simply be enough, that you say the true thing, and the world rearranges itself around it. I did not yet know that a comfortable lie has more friends than a hard truth ever will. What Connie did, she did fast, and she did it well. And I have spent my life since being a little afraid of how well she did it. She did not deny it to my face, alone. She was far too smart for that. She got ahead of it. By that same evening, she had gone to the family, weeping, and told them that the poor orphaned girl had finally cracked under her grief, that I was making up terrible, vicious lies about the very woman who had taken me in, that I was unstable, that I was jealous, that losing my mother had done something to my mind. And it worked, because it was the easier story. It is so much easier for a family to believe that a grieving teenager has come unglued than to believe that the saintly aunt everyone admires is robbing her own dying mother. One of those stories asks nothing of you. The other one asks you to look at something terrible and do something about it. They chose the story that asked nothing. They chose it almost gratefully. I remember the night they decided. There was a kind of family council. The aunts and the older cousins called quietly to the house to deal with the problem. And the problem was me. I was 16, and I sat in a hard chair in my abuela's front room while grown people I had known my whole life discussed me in low voices, as if I were a fever that had gotten into the house. And one by one, I watched them choose. I watched my mother's own cousin, who had bounced me on her knee, look at me with a new and careful pity, the kind you give the touched, the unwell. I watched the door close behind face after face, not with anger, and that is the part I need you to understand, not with anger, but with a soft, sorrowful, completely immovable certainty that poor Rosa was simply not well. I tried, once, to say it again, plainly, the truth, and my voice came out shaking because I was a terrified, grieving child, and Connie murmured, "See how worked up she gets?" And the very shaking that came from telling the truth was held up as the proof that I was lying. There is no trap on this earth like it. The more desperate you are to be believed, the more unbelievable they decide you must be. I learned that night to stop shaking. I learned to go still and quiet and far away down inside myself. And I have spent 36 years trying to unlearn it. And so at 16, in the same year I lost my mother, I lost my name, I became the family liar, the troubled one, la mentirosa, the girl you watched a little carefully, the cautionary tale the younger cousins were half warned about. Whatever I said after that, about anything, carried the little asterisk Connie had pinned to me. You know how Rosa is. She tells stories. She was never right after her mother died. I had told one true thing in the worst hour of my life, and I was made to pay for it with every hour after. You might think a thing like that fades once you are grown and gone from the house. It does not. A family brand follows you like a smell you cannot wash out of your clothes. When a cousin got married, years later, I was not asked to stand in the wedding. And I heard, the way you always hear, that they had worried I might make a scene. Because that is what Rosa does. She makes things about herself. She tells her stories. When my abuela's affairs were finally settled, no one thought to send word to me, because what claim could the family liar have on anything? For years, anytime something went missing at a gathering, a watch, a ring, a little cash, my name would float up somewhere in the low talk, never quite said and never quite not. Because once you have been cast as the one who takes things and lies about it, you become the convenient shadow in every room you walk into. So I stopped going. And then they stopped inviting me, which everyone agreed was for the best. And the most twisted part of all is that my absence became fresh proof. You see, she cut off the whole family. She always was troubled. After a while, Connie did not even have to keep telling the lie. She had built it so well that my own life kept it standing for her. Every year I stayed away, quietly confirming the story of the bitter, broken woman who could not be trusted among decent people. I have come to understand something about families that settle on a liar, and it is worth saying plainly, because if you are the one they chose, it may set something down in you to hear it. A family that is hiding something needs a person to be the problem, because as long as the problem is a person, it is not a sin the whole family is choosing to live beside. I was not only Connie's cover, I was the whole family's. As long as Rosa was the troubled liar, no one had to ask why an old woman's jewelry kept vanishing. No one had to read the papers. No one had to do the hard and frightening thing the truth would have demanded of every one of them. I was useful to them, broken. A scapegoat is almost never chosen because she is the worst of the family. She is chosen because she told a truth the family could not afford. And branding her the liar is simply how they make the truth disappear without ever having to face it. I spent 36 years believing I had been cast out for being bad. I had been cast out for being right. Those are two very different exiles. And it took me most of my life to understand which one I had actually been living in. My abuela had been the one, before the sickness took her mind, who saw me clearest of anyone but my mother. She was a hard old woman with soft eyes, and she used to keep me back after the others had gone and tell me I had my mother's hands and my mother's stubbornness. And she said it as though both were treasures. She taught me the old way of digging the micaceous clay out of the hillside, the family clay, the dirt that sparkles when the light hits it. And she would say that this ground remembered everyone who had ever worked it honestly, that the land kept a truer record than people ever did. When her mind began to go, I was the one who could still reach her on the bad days, because I would put a lump of that clay into her shaking hands, and her fingers would remember what her mind had lost. That is the woman I had to wonder about for 36 years. Not a stranger. The woman who taught me that the ground keeps a truer record than people do. The thought that she might have died holding Connie's record of me instead of the true one was the thought I could never put down. But that is not even the wound. I can tell you the wound. The one I have carried the longest. And it is this. My abuela died 8 months later, that next winter. And I never knew. I never got to know whether she died believing her granddaughter was a liar. That is the thing that has sat in my chest like a stone in a riverbed for 36 years. Not that Connie robbed her, not even that the family turned on me, but that the last face my grandmother may have held of me was the face Connie painted, the lying, grasping, broken girl, and that she may have gone into the ground thinking the child of her bright dead daughter had turned out rotten. I would have given anything to know what my abuela truly believed about me at the end. And for 36 years, the answer was buried with her in the Campo Santo, where I did not dare go because I did not think I had the right. I left at 18, the day I legally could, and I did not look back, because looking back was a thing that only ever cost me. I went south and then west, and I found Clay, and I will tell you that Clay saved my life. Because Clay does not care who your family decided you were. Clay only cares whether your hands are honest. A pot does not lie. You center it true or it wobbles, and you start again. And there is no ant in the world who can weep her way out of a crooked rim. I built a whole life on the one thing that could not be taken from me by a story, which was the truth my own 2 hands could make out of the dirt. But I built it alone. I never married. I kept people at the length of an arm, all of them, for 36 years. Because somewhere down in the cracked place, a 16-year-old still believed that if her own family could decide she was a liar, then anyone could, at any time. And the only safe distance was far. The brand did not just take my family. It took my whole capacity to be believed, even by myself, even by people who would have loved me. That is what they do not tell you about being called a liar as a child. It does not only change how they see you, it changes how close you will ever let anyone stand. There was a man, once, in my 30s, a good one, a glassblower who understood fire the way I understood it, and he wanted to marry me, and I left him. I have never told a soul why. I left him because one night he caught me in a small white lie about nothing, about where I had been, and he laughed, easy and warm, and said, "You are a terrible liar, Rosa." He meant it as the sweetest thing a person could say. He meant that I had an honest face, that lying did not sit on me. But I heard the word liar come out of the mouth of someone who loved me, and the 16-year-old still living down in the cracked place bolted like a horse from a burning barn. And I ended it inside a month and never explained myself, and he never understood, and I let him believe the fault was his. That is what they did to me, the size of it. They put a single word on a grieving child, and it turned the gentlest hands that ever reached for me into a thing I had to run from. I built my pots, and I kept my careful distance, and I called the distance peace, when all it ever was the long, cold shadow of one lie told by a frightened woman in a kitchen 30 years before. There was a night, 2 winters ago, when I had more or less made my peace with carrying it to my own grave. I was getting older. The people who had branded me were getting older. My abuela was long gone, my mother longer, and I thought, what would it even change now to drag it all back up? Connie was an old woman. The family had its settled story and had had it for decades. I told myself that some pots just crack in the kiln and you do not get to know why, and that I would simply be one of them, and that there was a kind of dignity in carrying a thing in silence. I had nearly talked myself all the way into the grave on it. And then something small happened that I did not go looking for, and it changed everything. The way the smallest stress fracture can decide the whole firing. My cousin Yolanda found me. Yolanda is Connie's daughter, 2 years younger than me, and we had been close as little girls before the year everything broke. Before I became a person she was taught to keep her distance from. I had not spoken to her in over 3 decades, and one autumn she tracked down my studio, and she wrote me a letter, an actual letter in her own hand. And the letter said only that she needed to talk to me about her mother, about something she had found, and that she understood if I never wanted to hear from any of them again, but that she was asking. And I sat with that letter for 2 weeks because I was afraid. I want to be honest about the fear. After 36 years of being the liar, I was afraid of being pulled back into a room where I would have to defend my own truth all over again and lose all over again. The brand makes you a coward about the very thing you are bravest about. But I am my mother's daughter, and my mother looked straight at things. So I wrote back, and I said one thing. I said, if we are going to talk, we talk at the Camposanto, at my mother's grave and my abuela's, because whatever is finally going to be said about that family should be said in front of the only 2 people in it who ever loved me cleanly. And Yolanda agreed. We met on a cold, bright morning, the kind northern New Mexico does in late autumn, the cottonwoods gone gold down along the acequia, and the mountains already white up top. I got there first. I stood at my mother's grave, which I had not visited in 36 years, and I put my hand on the cold stone, and I did the thing I had come 1,000 miles and 3 decades to do. I said it out loud, to her, finally. I said, Mama, I told the truth. I told the truth, and they called me a liar for it, and I have carried it ever since. And I am so tired, and I needed you to know it was never me. And the wind moved in the cottonwoods, and that was all, but it was enough, because for the first time in 36 years, I had said my truth, standing up, out loud, in the daylight, to someone who I knew would have believed me. I did not need the family for that part. That part I did for myself, and no one could take it. And then Yolanda came up the path, and she was crying before she even reached me. And what she told me is the thing I drove 1,000 miles to give you, in case you are out there carrying your own buried true thing. She said, Rosa, I know what my mother did. I have always known. And she told me that as a girl she had seen some of it too, the money, the jewelry, but that she had been 10 years old and terrified, and it was her own mother, and so she had said nothing, and had watched the family turn me into the liar, and had carried the shame of her silence for 36 years. And then, the autumn before, helping her aging mother sort through old boxes, she had found them, the papers, the bank records, my abuela's jewelry, some of it still wrapped in a handkerchief at the bottom of Connie's own cedar chest, kept all these years like a guilty secret a person cannot make herself throw away. Proof, hard and undeniable, of every single thing I had said at 16 and been crucified for. Yolanda had found the cracked place in the pretty pot, 36 years late, and it was exactly where I had always said it was. Yolanda was shaking as she told me, and I want to say that plainly, because the easy thing would be to make her only the messenger who set me free. But she had her own 36 years to account for, and she knew it. She had been 10 years old and frightened of her own mother, and she had said nothing. And she had grown up and married and raised her children, and the whole time there had been a girl, and then a woman, out there somewhere, wearing a lie that Yolanda could have lightened with one sentence, and never had. She did not ask me to forgive her that morning. She just laid it all down between us in the cold grass and let it be exactly as heavy as it truly was, which is the only honest way to hand a person back a thing you helped take from them. I have thought a great deal since about the courage that took, more in some ways than it took me, because all I ever had to do was carry a truth, and she had to set down a lie she had been hiding behind her entire life. The ones who go quiet to survive a powerful person are not the villains of these stories. But there comes a day when the silence costs more than the speaking would, and Yolanda finally reached hers, 3 decades late, and reaching it at all may have been the bravest thing anyone in that whole family ever did. But she gave me something else, there between the 2 graves, that I had stopped letting myself even pray for. She told me that in the same box she had found a letter my abuela had dictated to the parish priest in one of her last clear weeks, because her own hands could no longer write, and never sent. And Connie had clearly intercepted and hidden for 36 years. And in it, my grandmother said that she knew what her daughter Connie was doing, and that she knew her granddaughter Rosa had told the truth and been punished for it, and that she was too weak and too frightened of dying alone in that house to fight it, and that she begged God and she begged me for forgiveness for not being braver for me when I had been brave for her. My abuela had believed me. She had believed me the whole time. She had died not thinking I was a liar, but knowing I was the only honest one in the house, and grieving that she could not protect me. For 36 years, I had believed my grandmother went to her grave ashamed of me. And the truth, hidden in a cedar chest by the woman who feared it, was that she went to her grave proud of me, and sorry she had failed me. I knelt down in the cold dirt of that Camposanto between my mother and my grandmother, and I cried in a way I had not cried since I was 16. And Yolanda knelt down with me. And for the first time in 36 years, I was not the only one kneeling on my side of the truth. Now, here is the cold part, and it is colder than any shouting could be. I did not have to do a single thing to Connie. I did not confront her. I did not expose her in a grand scene. I did not need to, because Yolanda was already done carrying it. Yolanda took those papers and that letter to the rest of the family, the same family that had so gratefully chosen the easy lie 36 years before. And this time, they had no choice but to look at the thing they had refused to look at, because it was in my abuela's own dictated words and Connie's own handwriting and her own cedar chest. The saint came apart in front of all of them, the whole carefully kept story of poor, selfless Connie, who took in the lying orphan, dissolved into the truth of a woman who robbed her dying mother and then spent a 16-year-old girl's entire name to cover it. Connie is very old now, and she did not lose a courtroom or a fortune. She lost the only thing she had been protecting all along, which was the way the family saw her, the saintliness she had bought with my reputation. She had sold a grieving child's name to buy herself a sainthood. And the day the family finally read my grandmother's letter, the bill came due, all 36 years of it at once. And she has to live what is left of her life as exactly the thing she made me out to be. She made me the liar to keep from being known. And in the end, she is the one who is known, and I am the one whose word, at long last, holds. The family has reached out to me since. Some of them, the ones capable of shame. A few of the cousins I was once warned about have grown into people who drove out to my studio to say they were sorry, that they had been children too, that they had believed what they were taught. I have let some of them back to arm's length, and a little closer than that with Yolanda, who gave me back my grandmother. I am learning, at 54, the slow work of letting people stand near me, which is its own kind of pottery. You center it true a little at a time, and you do not rush the fire. I do not have my mother back, or my abuela, or the 36 years, but I have their faces clean again in my mind, both of them on my side, where they always were. And you would be surprised how much weight that lifts, to know the dead loved you the way you always hoped they did. This spring I went back up to the hillside where my abuela taught me to dig the family clay, the sparkling dirt, the ground she swore kept a truer record than people do. I had not put my hands in it in 36 years. Yolanda came with me, and so did her granddaughter, who is 16 now, the exact age I was the year it all came down. And the three of us dug clay together in the cold, bright morning. 3 living women of that family standing in the dirt that remembered every one of us, the honest and the otherwise. And I carried that clay back to my studio, and I made a simple vessel from it, nothing grand, and I set it in my own kiln. And it came through the fire whole, and it rang true as a bell when I tapped the rim. And I drove it back up the mountain, and I left it at my abuela's grave, with a little of the family clay still resting inside it, because she had been right all along. The land did keep the truer record. It just took 36 years and a hidden letter in a cedar chest for the rest of them to finally learn how to read it. The ground had known which of us was honest the entire time. The ground always knows. People ask me, the few who know the whole of it now, whether I feel like I finally got justice. I never quite know how to answer that, because justice is a courtroom word, and what was done to me never happened in a courtroom. It happened in a kitchen and a front room and 36 years of being talked about in the third person. There is no verdict that gives a woman back the wedding she was not invited to, the grandmother's last clear words she never got to hear, the good man she ran off in the dark, the decades she spent holding her own life at arm's length. I did not get any of that back. What I got was smaller and, it turns out, far larger. I got the story straight. For 36 years, I had lived inside Connie's version of me, even alone, even inside my own head, a low hum running underneath everything that whispered, maybe you are what they all said. Maybe there is something cracked in you after all. And my grandmother's letter, hidden in that cedar chest, reached in and shut that hum off for good. I am not the cracked pot. I never was. I am the one that rang true and got called cracked by people too frightened to tap me and listen. Knowing that does not give the years back, but it lets you live whatever years are left standing all the way up. I work clay for a living, so let me leave you with what the fire has taught me, because it is the truest thing I know. You cannot tell from the outside which pot carries the hidden crack and which one rings true. The flaw hides down inside under a flawless glaze, and the honest pot can look plain and unremarkable on the shelf for years. But you cannot fake your way through the kiln. The fire does not care how pretty the glaze is or how many people admired the pot. When the real heat comes, the hidden crack opens every time, and the true thing is the thing left standing in the ashes. If your family has called you the cracked one, the liar, the troublemaker, the one who tells stories, and you know in your hands that you are the one who rang true, then I want you to hear this from someone who waited 36 years for the fire to come. It comes. It always comes. The glaze burns off of everything eventually, and when it does, the truth is not the thing that shatters. The truth is the thing that was never cracked to begin with.